number of questions that I've received regarding whether the end times are upon us has increased over the past several months, really during the pandemic. And it shouldn't be surprising to us that when global calamities take place, this is kind of where our minds begin to go. Is the end upon us? And this has a lot to do with the message of Jesus as we hear it in the Gospel. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 24. As he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, the disciples approached him privately and said, "Tell us, when will this happen? And what sign will there be of your coming and of the end of the age?" Jesus said to them in reply, "See that no one deceives you, for many will come in my name, saying, 'I am the Messiah,' and they will deceive many. You will hear of wars and reports of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for these things must happen, but it will not yet be the end. Nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be famines and earthquakes from place to place. All these are the beginning of the labor pains. Then they will hand you over to persecution, and they will kill you. You will be hated by all nations because of my name. And then many will be led into sin. They will betray and hate one another. Many false prophets will arise and deceive many. And because of the increase of evil doing, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who perseveres to the end will be saved. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached throughout the world as a witness to all nations, and then the end will come." So it shouldn't be surprising that as Christians, we do in some way realize these things will happen. And it's very easy to look around in our world right now and to say, it certainly sounds like a lot of those things are happening. People's hearts are growing cold, turning away from the faith. People are hating one another. There is a lot of conflict and strife in the world. And so perhaps the fact that there is a great plague, a pandemic, it shouldn't surprise us that we are asking these sorts of questions. There are two key phrases in there that I want to focus on. The first is, "Do not be deceived, for many will come in my name." Do not be deceived by them. There are false prophets, there are people who will be very quick to say the end is near. The end is near. It's a great attention grabber. It's a great way to say, everyone look at me, because in some ways we want to know if the end is coming. And if we already are disposed to thinking that it's here, we're more attracted to that message. The question is, what is that person actually telling us to do? Because the end is near. So what? Obviously, it satisfies our curiosity to know that the end is near. But what does it compel us to do about it? On the one hand, there's nothing we can do about it except that last little bit. And that's the second part of the gospel I really want to focus on. Jesus says, "The one who perseveres to the end will be saved." That's what we're to do about it. We can question, we can ponder, we can wonder if the end is upon us. But in the end, what matters is persevering in the faith, no matter what's going on around us. And I think that's why Jesus openly speaks of these things. It's not because we simply have this curiosity and we want to know whether the end is upon us. Because this has happened in every single generation. Every age has claimed the end is upon us. There were people who said the year 2000 was the end because it's the end of the second millennia. Or there were people who said it's the end of the Mayan calendar that's the end. And then those same people, after the Mayan calendar ended, they said, well, we miscalculated. Now there's a new end to the Mayan calendar. That will be the end of all things when the end times come. And now we hear people saying something similarly to what's going on in our world. It is a quick response to crisis to say, well, Things are so bad now, the end is upon us. That always may be true. That always may be true. That's the message of Jesus. That's the message of Lent in some ways. St. Paul says the time is now. And I know I repeat that often, but Christianity is not about, well, I'll understand God someday. I'll be in heaven one day. No, Christianity is about now. It's about turning back to God and converting now. And sometimes fear is what helps us to do that. God only uses fear as a last resort. He prefers to use love to attract us, to draw us closer to Him. And He prefers to use reason, the reasonable arguments, thinking about what's going on around us, reflecting upon what's happening within our world and in our lives. It's only a temporary burst sometimes that He might use fear to grab our attention. Fear never lasts for very long. Love lasts eternally. So we use fear to draw us back into love, just as a parent might instill fear in a child of doing something wrong in the hopes that one day they will realize and do it out of love, not simply out of fear. So these messages of doom and woe are often taken out of context. The message is clear. We are to think that the end is near, so that we stay true and we persevere in our faith. Because that's what really matters. In times of trouble and distress and turmoil, we stay true. We do not wander off. God instills fear in us only to draw us back into a loving relationship. Before I conclude, I do want to address a couple of the very specific messages that often people will mention. They mention about the 3 days of darkness. Many different mystics have spoken of 3 days of darkness. You know, the 3 days of darkness in this life, there are 3 darkest days, and they are the days of Christ's passion and death. So we don't know whether there will be 3 days of darkness before the end or not. That's not ours to say. But on Holy Week, when we enter into the 3 days of darkness, when we enter into Christ's passion and death, we enter into what that darkness is, and we realize that at the end there is light. So whether it's to be taken literally, only time will tell. But we can enter into that figuratively. Lastly, I want to address the secrets of Fatima, because unlike the 3 days of darkness, the Vatican has actually spoken definitively about the revelations of Fatima. And I have it here to look at. Of course, it disappeared on me, and now I have to look again. So after acknowledging and publishing the fullness of the 3 secrets of Fatima during 2000, the year 2000, the Church writes this, and this is at the very end. It's 2 paragraphs long, so stay with me. What is the meaning of the secrets of Fatima as a whole? What does it say to us? First of all, we must affirm that the events to which the 3rd part of the secret of Fatima refers now seem part of the past. In as far as individual events are described, they belong to the past. He's speaking, of course, of the assassination attempt of John Paul II, the conversion of Russia, the fall of communism. We believe that those are the fulfillment of Fatima, speaking about events that would actually happen in the world. So it continues, those who expected exciting apocalyptic revelations about the end of the world or the future course of history are bound to be disappointed. Fatima does not satisfy our curiosity in this way, just as Christian faith in general cannot be reduced to an object of mere curiosity. What remains was already evident when we began our reflections on the text of the secret. the exhortation to prayer as the path of salvation for souls, and likewise the summons to penance and conversion. We can get excited about revelations, about mystical visions and their messages, but they're not meant to excite us out of curiosity. They're meant to compel us into a deeper relationship with God, to call us to prayer, to penance, to repentance. The message of the church, it's consistent. It's not flashy, but it's meaningful and it matters. God bless, and we'll see you next time.